And it can be as simple, I think, as like, part of our onboarding process. And I got to tell you, we learned the hard way was like asking what their company holidays were.
Hmm.
Something as simple as that, when like last year, Thanksgiving was on this day. Now it's on this day. And like for whatever reason, it wasn't updated. And and then suddenly what happens is like they come to work one day and like their phones aren't ringing and they wonder why. It's because this day last year was Thanksgiving. Right. And it's like these little things that I think that like you can miss early on, and then once you start to learn and you start to sell, and you kind of sell through it and you realize like, okay, we need to make sure that like all these boxes are checked, like you just said. Because if we do, then this isn't something that necessarily is going to like catapult us each individual one, but the sum of all of them is going to lead to retention, right?
There's no question, right? But it's also personalization, right? So let me give you an example to your point. Hey, at the beginning of the year, you go back to the business. I call it the office general, not the office manager. Go back to the office general and you say, hey, what are your company holidays for 2021? Oh, nobody ever, I didn't know. Let me go back and pull those for you. And then they end up having to think about it and actually change things, right? Or when you're coming up to a holiday, you have a automated message in your CRM or your email system go out to all of the users within their email system, whatever, saying, hey, don't forget to set up a holiday greeting, right? Hey, George, I'm going to be out for Labor Day. I'll get back to you when I get back to the office. Or, and in that message, you say, oh, not just your voicemail, your auto vacation reply, right? How many people forget to put that on, right? It's fine touches, right? That, like you said, accumulate, right? Or let me go a step further. What happens if there's a business that, sends their calls to like an answering service after their business hours, right? If they end up leaving early because of a holiday or they're closed because of a holiday, now those calls have to be routed to that entity, right? If you're a tow truck company or whatever, right? There's multiple reasons why people use answering services. Like, you need to make sure that call gets there, or else calls hit the system, they leave a voicemail. That never got transferred anywhere. And now all of a sudden it's the next day and you got a kind of hot client. So there's a lot of scenarios like that, but this is all just human being stuff, right? It's fine elements that if you're on top of them, there's value there because now the expectation is that you're helping them run their business.
Yeah. And another touch that we did was like professional recording.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, and people loved that, I think we use like Fiverr, some of those other websites. I know there's some like that are specific, but they love the process of, and we just, it was like $15. So it was not a big expense, but we took the time to like help them craft the message. It was professional recorded. They loved like calling into their own office just to hear it, that kind of like little wow factor. It's kind of just like their logo on the phone.
I was
you
just
know
I was just about to say exactly. This is the same thing,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people are on older systems where they still try and plug their radio in. Some people have the CD. A lot of people don't even like. Some people actually have a paid for subscription service where they send them an update every month, quarter, whatever. Here's the reality: people don't understand it. Like, there are rights, to a lot of this stuff, and you can't just rip an MP3 down and plug it into your phone system without some sort of royalty thing. Right now, there are services out there that do exactly this, but customizing and personalizing, you never lose, right? It's just like we said with the logo, just like we said with the targeted reminders. This is yet another high profile touch point where it's a polish. Like, you're really just putting the icing on the cake, and you're trying to get them to the point where they feel like they're customized to their business and they're giving that professional feel.
So you mean to tell me that the Rocky theme song that was like my callback tone, I probably owe that. Do I owe Stallone for that?
I don't. You might owe the company. Yeah, like, it may not be Stallone, but there's a company on top of him that want their rights on that. Yeah. So when you're Googling for on hold music, and you absolutely can, you're looking for like royalty free. That's the term, royalty free music. There have been people who have gotten hit, right? They ripped the latest pop song off their iTunes or whatever, and they popped it into the phone system, and somebody along the way figured out that they had Taylor Swift on their hold the hold music, and then all of a sudden bad things happen. You get a certified letter in the mail. But yeah, I mean, and look, again, there are services out there that allow you to use the newer stuff, but you pay subscription, right? And you have to show that you have the license to use it. It's a very simple thing that people get caught up on. But back to your point, why do that? Let's personalize, right? Let's personalize. Let's get into the weeds. Let's make sure that, it's something specific to that organization. And now all of a sudden you don't have that problem.
One of the things that we had to do a lot of R&D on that I thought like could have been better. I feel like we could have had more resources behind it, and at least really more vendor resources, was like figuring out what our standard like conferencing system was, more so for group conferencing.
Yeah.
I felt like there was like this big lapse, I think, in the industry where there was like people that were just selling this. And they were sort of like, weren't MSPs, they were just like specialists. And then there was like vendors, but the vendors didn't really have any sort of like all-in-one system that seemed to be, from a hardware perspective. And then there was no like unified software to then obviously go along with it, or easy way for somebody to access Teams or Zoom or whatever they use. Like I'll give you just a quick, our solution was, actually, we had one of those like mini USB PCs. IBM makes them or something. And again, this was years ago. And so like we just kind of gave up, and we were like, oh, let's just do this. It's a PC. It's, you just plug it in and then you can do whatever you want. So that's kind of my question is like that. I feel like once people transition back to an office, now like conference rooms are not going to be just for like meeting with people, as much as they're going to be with like meeting with people virtually. And so I feel like that's going to be an emphasis.
Yeah, no, there's no question that what you were talking about that, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago with the dial-in conference bridges, right? And there's paid for ones, there's free ones. I hate the free ones, by the way, because they're in like middle of nowhere exchanges where people call in and their numbers get blocked sometimes. It's not always free, guys. But anyway, there's the voice ones. But you're right. A whole industry has pivoted to, the whole video component, right? And then like there used to be whole $30,000 video room installs, right? Back in the day, it was like Polycom was one, or Life Size is another, or there was a ton of different ones, right? Sandberg, or there was a Tamberg. I'm sorry, there was a bunch of different ones. Now, like, anything can be your webcam, right? Anything, you've heard of Zoom rooms, you've heard of, all these different little widgets and what have you. Here's the reality, right? The systems out there are built between two components, hardware, software, obvious. You want to be able to probably put a system in place that can work with anybody's system. Because if you're using WebEx, I'm using Zoom, you're using Teams. Internally, you can standardize, but your customer may be using who knows, right? So my point to you is you want to be able to make sure that the equipment you're putting into your conference rooms, your huddle rooms, your whatever, are agnostic, right? Can work with any service. Just like you click a link on your computer, the screen pops up. You may need to install a little plugin, and then you're signed in, right? Go to meeting or whatever. So that reality is a little bit broken from the telephony and reality, right? And you see some of these guys that were really good on video have tried to start coming out with phones. Here's the reality. They're really bad at it. They just are. It's a me too, right? No offense to Teams. Great collaboration solution. Not great phone system. No offense to Zoom. Great collaboration tool. We're using it right now. Not a great phone system. So there is the ability to mesh these two worlds together. You have a good, voice solution. You have a good video solution, and you can, marry those. Because like this vendor and this vendor are not good at the opposite, right? You can marry those, and that's an integration point. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but it is possible. And quite frankly, you can get the best of both worlds. Why reinvent the wheel? That's what I have to say. I say pick the tools that you're invested in and cross-connect them, and now you have an ecosystem, right? You're playing with one foot in both pools. So you'll see a lot of the newer technology that's come out, especially from some of the guys, right? Polycom's one, right? Yealink's another one, whatever. They're all USB based. All of the room and huddle room technology can work on any device, can work with any service, right? They want to give you a really good web or camera solution and a really good audio experience. But then the service that you're connecting to could be whatever you want. And as a result, you can choose whatever you want. You can work with whoever is calling you on whatever service that you want. So there's a little bit of work on your side to make sure that your rooms are set up, with the right gear. But once it's in there, we're not talking about $30,000 now. You can put a huddle room together, conference room together, that kind of thing. Less than $1,000.